Kia ora everyone, welcome to These Guys Got Next, our NBA basketball podcast where we dissect the NBA and deliver our takes and analysis from the bench. I'm Elijah Fa'afiu, he's Ravindu Pathirana. Ravi, the playoffs, they're just around the corner. You excited?
Yeah, man, love it. I think it's brewing up to be a hell of a playoffs, especially after a duller regular season. Yeah, definitely looking forward to it. Unfortunately, going to be on break for a couple of weeks in between, but definitely going to be keeping an eye on what's happening.
Of course, I was just actually going to check in on how everything was on your end, but no, you've already told us there. Looking forward to you getting a bit of time off from me and the pod and a bit of NBA basketball as well. Um, So yeah, this will be our last episode for a little while the playoffs are taking place. So we're gonna dissect as much as we can about the playoff picture. Yes, we are recording before the regular season's actually done. So by the time this episode drops, the playoff picture would have been confirmed. So we're gonna try to do our best to sort of talk around where everything fits. Try and fit in as much of the playoff puzzle as we can. But as of right now, as we're recording, the standings are in the East. We've got the Cavs, Celtics, Knicks, Pacers, Bucks, Pistons, and then in the play-on you've got the Magic, Hawks, Bulls, and Heat. Those spots, well, at least the top six and then the four teams in the play-in seem to be secure in the East. So it's a lot easier for us to talk about the East there. The West, however, it's a bit of a bloodbath over there. We've got the Thunder and the Rockets. They're set in the top two spots. Lakers, Nuggets, Clippers, Warriors, Grizzlies, and Timberwolves. Those last two teams are currently in the play-in. Those seeds from 3 to 8, maybe really 4 to 8, can switch at any point. So the order I've just mentioned can easily switch by the time this episode drops. So we're just going to do what we can to sort of go through things. And then the Kings and the Mavs have those last two play-on spots right now. But Rav, where do we begin when talking about this playoff picture? Because
You're right. A bloodbath, man. That's pretty hectic. But I think where we could potentially start is the upcoming schedule for these teams. Like if you look at the Nuggets, they've got the Grizzlies and the Rockets coming up, which makes it a little bit of a difficult two-game finish for these guys. Clippers got Sacramento and Golden State, which will be an entertaining finish. Dubs got Portland and Clippers, obviously. Grizzlies got Denver and Dallas. Wolves got Nets and Jazz. I think Wolves, out of all those five teams, probably has the easiest run.
you'd hope
Maybe.
so.
I hope so. Yeah, but then it could potentially also mean, but I reckon looking at the five, maybe the Nuggets have the hardest schedule. So could potentially see them slip a few slots as well. So yeah, really, really hard to say what's going to happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of games in there that really could decide the playoff spots. The Nuggets and the Grizzlies is one, and then the Clippers and the Warriors is the big one.
Yeah.
That is really going to determine, or could determine, who's in the play-in and who's not. So, I guess from those teams, and we'll talk about 4 to 8. So Nuggets, Clippers, Dubs, Grizzlies, Wolves. Which of those two teams can you see falling into the play-in spot when it's all said and done?
I think I'm going to say the Grizzlies are a lock. I was going to say Wolves, but again, looking at the two-game schedule, it's relatively easy. They're playing like bottom of the table, bottom of East and West, so pretty lucky for those guys. But I'd say, yeah, I'm just going to go the Golden State Warriors just for them to be a bit more fatigued going into the playoffs as a Clippers fan.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I'm glad you added that extra little tidbit because I was going to say, as a Clippers fan, I'd agree with you and say the Grizzlies for sure, just given what they've been going through the last few weeks, and the Warriors, even though they have been hot when they have Steph and Jimmy on the floor together. It's funny you brought up the Timberwolves playing against the Nets and the Jazz. Like the Warriors lost a game to the Spurs earlier in the week, and that's a game you sort of look at and you would have thought that would be an easy dub for the Warriors. But then Harrison Barnes ruined all that. And that's one of those moments you look back on and think, oh, if the Warriors won that game, they could be a lot higher up in the play-in picture or playoff picture and potentially not fall in that play-in spot. So yeah, I'd agree with you and say Grizzlies and the Dubs. We're just gonna veer to I guess the 9 and 10, who are the Kings and the Mavs. Play-in will start the day after this episode drops. Who wins 9 and 10? Just off the bat.
Oh, I'm gonna say Kings, man. I'm gonna back them because like I don't have a lot of hope for the Mavs as I mentioned last episode. So I'm gonna If I was to bet, I was gonna put my bet on the Kings.
Yeah, and the Kings they're a weird team because they're so inconsistent. But I guess when it comes
Mm,
to a one game shootout on their day, they can
mm.
outscore any other team. When you've got guys like DeRozan and Levine and Sabonis as well. So,
I mean,
which brings me
Malik
to
Monk,
my
he's another great shooter for that team.
yeah, exactly. Which brings me to my next question: which team, if you're the Thunder at number one, who do you worry about potentially being in that eighth seed spot? Do you see the Kings forcing their way in? Do you see one of these other teams like the Warriors or the Grizzlies falling into that eighth spot and having to fight for their lives, I guess, and for the eighth spot?
Like it'll be hard to say who exactly they should worry about because they've just been so consistent this whole season, especially against all of these teams. But I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say watch out for the Dubs just because they've got so much veteran experience, championship experience, especially with adding Jimmy now in the mix. Great playoff player. So once they really slow that game down, because it slows right down in the playoffs, so we'll have to see, how it kind of pans out. But I'm going to say the Dubs, if they fall into that eighth seed, will cause a lot of trouble for the Thunder. Would you agree on that sense, or
I
you
think the
guys have
Grizzlies
different?
will take the eight,
Yeah.
and I think the Warriors take the seven.
Hmm.
But it's because I want to see the Warriors Rockets in a first round playoff series. And given what we saw earlier in the week before between these two teams, bit of bad blood there between it was Ime Udoka and Steph Curry, and then Draymond getting called for knocking
Draymond
out Prince
activities.
Greaves, Draymond activities, I guess. I would love to see that spill over into a seven game, well, but hopefully a 7 game playoff series.
I mean,
So
they've had history, right? Like, not just with under Mayodoka. Like, you think, 2018 when Harden was there, that
yeah,
game was game 7 with CP. And also, they've had some unbelievable games this season. Like, I think back in November as well, they had a great game that came down to the wire. So, yeah, I'm all for it, man. 2-7 on the Dubs, yeah. It'll be a great series.
yeah, I love to see that as well. And I guess the other situation we talk about. So if we're both saying the Warriors and the Grizzlies 7 and 8, that means we've got 4, 5, 6 Nuggets, Clippers, Wolves. One of those teams are our own very own Clippers. What's the ideal scenario for the first round for the Clippers? Who would you like to see them face? Where would you like to see them end up in the rankings?
Yeah, it's a toughie. It's a toughie because there's so many different scenarios that could happen for us. So if we end up fourth or at fifth as we are right now, we play the Nuggets, who are in a bit of disarray, which we'll touch on shortly, especially after the firing of Michael Malone. If we slide down to six, that means we play the Lakers, and not particularly against the Lakers. We've had a bad run, but it's more against Luka himself, who's had great success against the Clippers in the playoffs, so could potentially be our Achilles heel. All things considered, given where the Nuggets are at the moment, I'd probably take the Nuggets. Yeah, but it's so difficult, man. It's hard to pinpoint exactly. Um, yeah, just because there's so much up in the air right now.
I'll be honest, it's easy. I want to face the Nuggets first round, just because like we're going to
Yeah,
touch on it soon. Yes, Jokic is there. Okay,
yeah,
big concern. Nikola Jokic, very hard to guard. I know. Rest of the roster, I'm not so concerned about. Like when we're looking at depth of their roster versus depth of our roster, I would say I would lean towards the Clippers' depth. But all it takes is a couple of big Jokic games to take us take us out of the playoffs. So yeah, for me it's a lot easier. I think, which would leave the Timberwolves at 6, possibly going against the Lakers, which that wouldn't be a bad matchup to watch. Especially with the way the Timberwolves have been playing as of late. I think, along with the Clippers, I think the Timberwolves are sort of finding their form late in the season. They put up 140 on the Grizzlies just before earlier in the week, and Edwards went off for 44 points. I think they had a
44, yeah.
52-point third quarter, which is the most points a team has scored in a quarter this season. So they're finding their form at the right time,
I mean,
uh,
I'm just going to add one more thing, which goes against that point. Also, this week they had a 34-3 run against
which
themselves
is
against the
what I was going to
Bucks,
bring
right?
up. So
Yeah.
again, like we talk about these moments, like the Warriors losing to the Spurs, the
Mm,
Timberwolves having this run against them by the Bucks. If that run doesn't happen, the Timberwolves would be a lot higher up in the
mm.
playoff pictures. So all these little moments in the last week or so have really played a part in determining where these teams are going to end up in the playoff picture. But yeah, Clippers and Timberwolves are probably two teams who are on form right now, and yeah, but really everything we've just said could just be completely thrown out once
By the
the
time the
regular
episode
season's all
drops,
said and
yeah,
done.
yeah,
So you might as well just skip this part if once the regular season's out and the playoff picture looks a bit different. Eastern
just got to put
Conference
a
is a little bit
big asterisk over this, man, over this
exactly.
thing.
Eastern Conference is a lot more easier to talk about because it seems as though the positions are set in stone.
Mm,
There might be a little bit of tussle with those 5 and 6 spots maybe,
yeah,
but other than that, like everything else is pretty set. I guess when we look at the play-in, Magic, Hawks, Bulls, Heat, how do you see that play-in playing out? Who comes out as the 7 and 8? Can you see the Bulls or the Heat possibly leapfrogging one of the other teams?
Heat's been on a bit of a run. Bulls probably not. Yeah, I'll say Heat will come out of that 9-10 matchup, and I'm going to go Magic because Paolo and the boys have been doing good, especially with the injuries that they've had. But Heat Hawks would be an unreal matchup, man. Like for that eighth seed. So I'm gonna go and yeah, I'm gonna go the Hawks on this one over the Heat to get that eighth seed. But again, all that just to be swept against the Cavs. Anyways.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna go opposite. I'm gonna say the Heat will
Yeah,
beat the Bulls, and then I think they beat the Hawks for the 8th spot. But again, they're gonna come up against the Cavs, and the Cavs have been rolling this season, and I don't see them being upset at all. I think the Pacers have pretty much locked up their 4 spot.
yeah,
They could potentially move up to the 3rd spot, but I'm just gonna assume that they'll stay in 4. How would you like to see those playoff matches play out? Like, are you happy with the Pacers Bucks matchup and then a Knicks Pistons first round matchup?
yeah. I'd say so. Next Pistons will be good, but it'll be good. But I like Pacers Bucks would be nice, but also if the Pacers get that third seed, Pacers Pistons would be nice as well, like a bit of bad boys Pistons and a bit of bad blood between those two teams from history. That'd be quite good. But Pacers Bucks would be a really good series as well,
Yeah.
especially the way
Well,
Giannis has been playing. And KPJ has been stepping up lately, as of
yeah,
late. And Bobby Portis is back, man. So we'll touch on that shortly as well. We'll touch about that. This Bucks game.
yeah. I mean, the Pacers can still face Pistons in a 4-5 because Bucks and Pistons face each other twice to finish off the season. So they're pretty much fighting for that 5th spot. So we'll see what happens when it's all said and done. But I mean, either way, like no matter how the matchups between 3, 4, 5, and 6 line up, I would not complain at all. I think those are some great matchups there for a first round in the Eastern Conference. So I mean, that was a lot easier to talk about than the West because I don't know what's
Yeah,
happening in the Western Conference. So
it always is the case, man. Like historically as well, it's hard to predict until it's done.
exactly. I mean, and that's the best part about the NBA is that comes down to the wire, goes down to the final day of the season. You can never assume in the NBA, which I guess is a nice segue to Denver. You can never assume that you can have a head coach until the end of the season. We thought Memphis left it too late when they fired Taylor Jenkins with 9 games to go in the season or so.
And then Nuggets said, "Hold my beer."
Denver said, "Hold my beer. We're going to go in our post-Malone era," and
That's a good one.
yeah, how good. And they fired Michael Malone with 3 games left in the season. Why?
I mean, it seems like there was a lot of build up to it. Like, obviously, weren't we weren't aware of everything that was going on because it only seemed to have shed the light on it following or in the post Malone era. But that's, I mean, if it's causing a lot of issues culturally within the team, and you need that team bonding to go into the playoffs, So fair enough. You just kind of sever the ties and say we're just gonna go our own way and figure it out. Because seems like from all the reports that were coming out at Mike Malone's behavior in the locker room, or picking certain players, or like Jalen Pickett over Russell Westbrook, giving like or not being hard enough on Jokic and Murray, has had an impact on the other players. So that was interesting. Oh, also just another thing, like the speaking of how the culture's been really bad. I saw a report this morning of a reporter asking MPJ about the team dinner that Christian Brown organised the night before, and he said he was not aware of it. So adding to those divisions within the locker room.
Yeah, some civil war going on over in Denver because it wasn't just Malone that got fired; it was the general manager Calvin Booth. And you're right, there was two, I guess, philosophies going head to head. Michael Malone, who's very much he's a hard nosed coach who loves playing veterans. That's why he's been playing Russ so much, and not that that's been a problem. Like Russ has actually been solid this season. He's found his role. He's found his fit with Jokic, as we've mentioned in previous episodes. Calvin Booth prefers having the younger players played. He wants the guys that he drafted to get some minutes, and Malone doesn't like that. Malone prefers to play the vets, as we saw in that 23 championship team, where you had your Jeff Greens, your Bruce Browns, KCPs. Now all those guys are gone, and he kind of doesn't really have a choice now but to play these younger guys like Peyton Watson,
Jalen Pickett.
Jalen Pickett, Julian Strawther, and Christian Brown. So I feel like there's a division within the team between the vets and the young crop of players, and I guess
Yeah.
Christian Brown falls with the young crop, and I guess MPJ is part of that older veteran crop. So I guess that's where the line is sort of being drawn. And I think the owner of Denver must have thought, well, these two, it's like having two kids who are bickering over something, right? And the parent sort of steps in and say, okay, well, you're both grounded, right? You're both in trouble. I don't care
Yeah.
who's right, who's wrong. You guys are both gonna cop the blame for this. So that's sort of
Do you reckon that division was caught by just Calvin Booth wanting to play the younger players, but the result was that the team is in their fourth seed for a reason, right? It's because how Malone's been structuring this roster and putting in the minutes.
well, it's also
The
because they
owner
got
can't really
Jokic.
be. Yeah, I mean that's obviously a big factor. I'm saying Jokic aside, he has to play these older guys because they're not in a position to experiment with the younger guys as of yet. You know, like sure, maybe early in the season they could, or somewhere in the middle of the season they can. But right now, given the way that they're going, and especially how much of a bloodbath the West is, they can't really take a chance on this. So
No,
I'm going to
yeah.
side with Mike Malone on this. I don't know if you have a side to take, but I'm
No,
not a fan of the
I'm
culture
team
of
Mike
divisions.
Malone. No,
Yeah.
I'm easily team Mike Malone. Like we've both said like during the preview of the season that when all these vets left, you were left down to these guys like Strawther and Watson who were gonna have to step up in their roles. It's not as though Michael Malone had a choice. Like he always knew coming into the season that it was going to be a balancing act between playing these younger players, but also trying to find a way to get the most out of them while they're playing alongside Jokic when they're in a win now window.
Yeah.
But I've always sided with Malone because when you've got a guy like Jokic, you need to give him the best supporting cast. And right now, the best supporting cast are guys who have been there, done that, guys who are experienced, who know how to win, rather than guys you've just drafted 2 years ago and hoping, like having your fingers crossed that they've actually developed. Because out of all those young guys, who's actually played well? I'd say Christian Brown.
Christian Brown, yeah, I think that's
And
probably the only one consistently. Peyton
exactly,
Watson, maybe.
I think inconsistency with those guys like
Yeah.
Watson and Strawther. So
Yeah.
it's not like they've drafted well. Like there's probably a reason Malone hasn't been playing them because he knows that the guys that Booth has drafted haven't been up to standard. So I think this sort of back and forth, this tug of war between Malone and Booth, at some point it had to end. And well, the owner obviously thought 3 games left in the season was the way to do it. So, which is why I think the Clippers picking the Clippers coming up against the Nuggets is the ideal situation. Like, why not take advantage of a team that's yes, you've got Jokic, but look at the rest of their team. They're in like, tatters. Like
Yeah.
the
Kicking
rest
when
of the
they're
locker
down,
rooms are
man.
miserable.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, let's hope that it pans out the way we expected. given the bloodbath, and when this drops on Monday, we can keep this segment in in the episode.
But I guess when we talk about the Nuggets, like what's next for the Nuggets, like because Malone's the only coach that Jokic has ever had.
Hmm.
It's just trying to think of what other coach in the NBA could work with Jokic, or you know, do you see a situation where Jokic's time in Denver runs out? Like I guess what's the how do you see the next step at least for the Nuggets?
I don't think his time in Denver runs out if they can land a solid head coach. And I think the playoff run this season will have a big weight on Jokic's career in Denver.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, they've still got a whole playoff series a whole playoff to go through with David Edelman as their interim coach. So we'll see whether this
And
will
Coach Jokic, man, can't forget about him.
exactly. Well, he's the new coach now, basically.
Yeah.
But we'll see if this firing of Michael Malone has fueled this team, given them motivation, or whether it's pretty much put the nail in the coffin. In terms of what else has happened this week, Luka returned to Dallas for the first time, and I got to say, if there was ever a moment that told you that a player didn't want to leave his team or didn't want to be traded, it's the way that Luka reacted to his tribute video this week. I mean, have you seen much emotion from a player
Yeah,
like that? To
no, not at all.
yeah,
Like not that much. Almost like he had the Gatorade towel ready. Like even just as the video started, so he just knew, that's gonna cause a floodgates to open. But yeah, man, that was actually very very emotional. Watching on it, you just see how much that the Mavs meant to Luka. First team, had a season with Dirk, great bond with Mark Cuban, and all the stuff he's done for this team. Unfortunately, the way it ended. Wait, I don't know if you saw that the Gatorade commercial that came out
yes,
recently.
the trader.
The traitor, yeah,
Well, I'm still trying to figure that out though, because I saw one side had the RA, and I guess the I from the because I'm assuming the towel was spelled Gatorade, right? Or
yeah,
did they
yeah.
change the font to
Maybe one side potentially they could have changed it.
okay? But I did see the remnants there of what was being spelled.
Hmm.
But yeah, that was very interesting from Gatorade and Luca. Yeah,
But
but
man,
how
hell of a
good?
game on the way back though. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
45 bomb with 7 threes and 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and 31 in the first half. So it's definitely letting the fans know what Nick Harrison's done and what they're missing out on.
yeah. That's one way to stick it to Nico Harrison. 31 points at the half is insane. Like he pretty much made a statement there, but then to end it with 45. Yeah, and I think great from the Dallas faithful to applaud Luca and give him a standing ovation when he did go out, because there's no bitterness towards Luca. There's no need to be. That's not how
Not at
the
all.
situation played out at all. So I think it's great of Dallas to treat Luca with that much respect, and Luca obviously gave that in return. Unless your name is Nico Harrison, then you got 45 points and your team got beat up. And then Anthony Davis in the same game, 13, 11, and 6, so not as impactful. So I guess for that night only, the Lakers definitely won the trade for sure. But yeah, that was very emotional just to see Luca how that all played out. But great to see Luca come out all happy by the end of things, and I think he knows that it's time to move on. And yeah, but anyway, we'll stick on the Lakers for a little bit because earlier in the week they beat the Thunder, and usually I wouldn't talk about this because it's earlier in the week, but 126-99 is a bit of a statement, especially when it's in
The Thunder.
OKC
Yeah.
and you hold Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the supposed free throw merchant, to no free throw attempts in this game, the lowest since 2021. Do you take much away from that? Like, do you think it was just an off night for the Thunder? Do you think the Lakers are making a statement at all come playoff time? Like, what do you sort of take away?
I think it's a latter, man. They kind of solidify that 3 seed, right? Because I'm just looking at this holistically. If you look at the other teams as well, like Warriors had an opportunity to get up the ladder, didn't happen. Where Lakers had a great run this week, 2 wins against that's crucial to help position them in the playoffs. But yeah, I think probably the most interesting thing was that Luka getting that technical barking at a fan.
in the second game. Yeah,
Yeah,
so the
yeah.
Thunder got their revenge later in the week, and then yeah, Luka, for some reason the ref wanted to be center of attention and thought Luka was barking at him when he was clearly not. He was clearly talking to a fan, but
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if the fans can talk, so surely the players are able to talk back, right? And they shouldn't be fined for it. Well, sorry, the refs shouldn't be make themselves a center of attention because that's pretty uncalled for.
yeah. And the NBA made up for it later on. They rescinded that technical foul that led to the ejection. So Luke turns out Luka didn't actually wasn't actually supposed to be ejected. So I'm glad that the NBA could right a wrong there. A couple other playoff sort of potential matchups happening this week. Rockets Warriors. We sort of touched on this a little bit. Was there anything further that you sort of took away? Because I think the only thing that I sort of took away is the way that the Rockets, as of late, maybe not just in this game, but as of late, have been using Sengun and Steven Adams together as a double big man lineup, which seems to be working quite well, freeing up Sengun quite a bit. Adams with his offensive rebounding ability, which could pose a potential threat in the playoffs, especially if they come up against the Thunder and Hartenstein and Holmgren. But that's sort of my takeaway. What did you sort of take
Yeah, I
away?
think just adding on to that as well, like I'll go into the big Kiwis rebounding impact on this team shortly, but also the way they guarded Steph in that game, like just Armin Thompson was just a nightmare for him. Held him for like 1 for 10 from shooting, like 3 points in the game, which was, shows their capability defensively with these guys, and now with the way they're just, shooting and praying, hidden hoping in a sense for these threes, or shooting, just hoping that Stephen Adams or Şengün's just there to get the boards. Like Stephen Adams is having historical numbers, 22% offensive rebound rating, and yes, since January 24%, and it's more than nine teams in the league, which is unbelievable what he's doing right now. And that 4-5 lineup seems to be working because Şengün is now, not the sole, doesn't have the sole responsibility for the boards, and with his playmaking ability to get other guys involved as well. Like second chance points are massive for any team, and just the way these guys are able to impact it. So I ran a bit of a stat. Steven Adams has 164 offensive rebounds and 157 defensive rebounds, and the only player in the top 50 of offensive rebounders this season to have more offensive boards than defensive boards. So shout out to the big Kiwi man, impacting this team massively and having a greater rebound rate than the Dennis Rodman 96 Bulls by 7%. Like they're having 45% of the Rockets this season, and the Bulls had 38% back in 1996. So this is unbelievable stuff that they're doing, and I'm hoping this translates, especially even when the game slows down a little bit, and come playoff time. So this is awesome to see, and shout out the big Kiwi. Always good to see the ANZ doing well.
Yeah, you love to see it with Steven Adams. So um, we knew that this is the impact he could have. It took a while for the Rockets to sort of bring him in to the system and give him the the amount of minutes that he sort of deserved. And now we're seeing it this late into the season, the impact he's having on the boards. I just like the Rockets that they've found an identity. Like they're just a hard nosed team under Ime Udoka. You touched on it last week. They lead the league in what technicals and ejections since
The
Udoka
Black
was
Air
brought
Force
in.
energy.
Yep, Black Air Force energy. Yeah, that's pretty much their identity. Like we're just gonna beat you guys down, and you guys have to, smack us in the face if you're gonna beat us. So they're gonna make teams in the playoffs earn their wins, and I can't wait to see what a 7 game or a 6 game series looks like against these guys because that could be a whole lot of fun. And also, we had the Knicks and the Celtics going head to head. The Knicks looked like they were going to get their win against one of the big teams in the league, and then Boston and Jason Tatum just came up clutch to
Yeah, the
force
Green Guna had other
overtime.
plans.
Yep. And then just some big games from Tatum and Porzingis, especially 34 points and 8 3-pointers. I know you picked the Knicks as the champions. How are you feeling about the Knicks and where they stand as they head into the playoffs?
I mean, this season they haven't had a great record against the top six teams, right? Like it's, and this proves it in a sense. Like Cat just needs to be stronger, man. Just watching that game, you just Drew Holiday was out strengthening Cat. Like, what the hell is going on there? Like that's horrific to see. They just need to like have that element of toughness. But all in all, it was great to see Jalen Brunson back on the court doing his thing. OG Anunoby played really well. Like he got some crucial buckets and offensive boards. Um, but yeah, there was. I'm happy for KP, man. You know, in his home turf where he was got drafted. That video of uh, the who's the reporter? The angry New Yorker reporter who was like Crispus Tingus
Oh
when he
yes,
was
I know which one.
drafted.
I know. I don't know the name, but I know the video.
Yeah, that was just playing on the back of my mind as soon as he had that three. But yeah, yeah, don't have hopes, but playoffs anything can go. So let's see.
We'll see what happens. And yeah, I'm very Rav and I are both very excited for the playoffs once they do come around and once things get underway. Um, I guess if you're hitting in the play-in, and we'll talk about some of the other things we've observed this week. If you're in the play-in tournament and you're coming up against the Kings, I wouldn't want to play against Jonas Valanciunas, who seems to be a seasoned veteran when it comes to these play-in tournaments. His sixth straight play-in tournament he's played now, and that's spanning from his time with the Grizzlies, the Pelicans, and the Kings in 8 career play-in games. 123 points, which is the most all-time in the play-in tournament, and 115 rebounds, most all time in the play-in tournament. So Jonas Valanciunas, the king of the play-in, and to think that he was with the Wizards at the start of the season, so that streak could have easily have ended. So um, we'll see if the Kings can make some noise. Ja Morant has, I guess, found a new celebration. I don't know why he keeps coming up in headlines with his celebrations. We should be talking about the way he's been playing on the court. The fact that
Is
the
he trying
Grizzlies
to get a
have,
Call of Duty skin? Is this what he's like? Is that the goal? Like a
I
Warzone
think
skin?
so.
Like,
All I can imagine is him whenever he shoots a three, whenever he makes a three, is like when you're playing Call of Duty and you need to like change your weapon, and all those like options come up, and he's trying to choose which ones to use as a celebration. So like he's used the gun the last couple of games. Now I assume he's popping imaginary grenades and tossing into the stands, but apparently he says it's otherwise, right, Rav?
yeah, it's his, like the report came this morning. It's his own words supposedly he's taking out of his mouth and throwing away in the stands and blocking out the noise. So yeah, interesting take by Jar there. So yeah, let's see if the NBA finds another way to put a stop to this.
I find that quite so funny because he's talking about blocking out the noise when he did that at a home game. I'm like, what noise is he blocking out? But anyway, hey, I guess the haters outside of Memphis is probably what he's referring to there. But it's always nice to keep up with Ja and his celebrations. Anything else stick out to you from this week, Rav?
I was just gonna just a couple of quick things. That comeback win for the Bucks against the Wolves. I kind of briefly touched on it earlier, but yeah, man, it's nice to see this team coming alive now, especially in the absence of Dame, and hopefully he makes a speedy recovery, being back in time for maybe about the late or back end of the first round. But KBJ, just want a big shout out to him, ex Clipper boy. So 21, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 steals on 67% field goal shooting that game. And 4 of the 5 steals came in the fourth. And, you know, man, it was just electric. So that was really good to see him thriving in the Bucks jersey. And Bobby Portis came back, put up 18 and 10. So that's another takeaway. And yeah, we touched on the Harrison Barnes game winner as well. Yeah, anything else that you saw?
I will mention that Jalen Wells and that scary fall he had for the Grizzlies, because now it's been confirmed he's out for the season,
Yeah.
which I guess in the grand scheme of things is a big loss for the Memphis Grizzlies in terms of their wing defense. And but also at the same time, sad moment for a rookie to have to go through that. Landed on his face or neck after a dunk attempt, and KJ Simpson of the Hornets, sort of ran into him. I'm sure he was trying to avoid him, but just managed to clip him, and it was just real awkward how everything. He was just laying there prone for a good while, and then he had to get stretched off. I will say there was a similar incident in the Clippers Rockets game where James Harden did a similar thing to Cam Whitmore, but there was no foul called,
Yeah.
so we'll just
Should we call that the veteran whistle?
possibly. I think we just quickly move on, just so we're not showing any bias or anything.
Bias,
But
yeah.
hey, Is what it is. And I guess finally, shout out to the college basketball national champions confirmed this week. Florida beat Houston 65-63, and UConn with Paige Beckers, who should be the WNBA number one pick, thrashing South Carolina 82-59. A bit gutted that I picked Duke and they fell short in that Final Four against Houston. They choked basically, but
Yeah, I mean, but there was a stat in the last four games that they had like possession very late and they just fumbled it in the last the close games that they had. So, don't know. Let's see. Hopefully, it doesn't translate into for Cooper Flag when he comes into the NBA.
oh no, Cooper will be fine. Whatever team is lucky enough to have Cooper Flag, they're getting a very good prospect and then a couple of great teammates that he's got on their Duke side as well. But anyway, that's pretty much all we have. Quick fire time, right, Rav? Let's just get
Let's do it.
stuck
Yeah.
into it. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Rav, which three players are you disappointed about missing the playoffs / play-in this season?
I'm going to go Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and De'Aaron Fox. Yeah, Eli, which non-playoff team should we keep an eye out for next season?
Portland Trailblazers. I just love how they've been playing. And Denny Avdia
Danny
is
Avdija, yeah.
what a player. Rav, who should the Nuggets hire as their next head coach?
I'm going Mike Brown because he's played with a dynamic guard and a big, like a solid big, and also a big culture guy, so which is what they need this team. Eli, where will Coach Malone end up next season?
I like him on the Spurs. Yeah, I can see him. I want to see what he does with Wemby and De'Aaron Fox and that young core. Oh, okay. Now that I've said it, and he doesn't like young players. Okay, I might have to. Anyway, Rav, which team in the West is most likely to pull off a sweep in the first round of playoffs?
I'm going to go OKC. Just a guide on them, OKC. Yeah. What about the East? Who's likely to pull off a sweep?
I'm going to say Celtics. I think they're defending champs. They're coming for that title. They're going to come in hot. So we'll end it there. Rav, thank you so much for your time as always. All the best with your trip to Sri Lanka on your well-deserved break. So we're going to be off for a little while, but the playoffs are going to be on. Make sure you guys tune in. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and TikTok. I'll make sure to throw a couple of TikToks on there to keep you guys updated with NBA stuff. And make sure you follow us on YouTube and Spotify as well for the latest episodes. But until then, we got next and Matua.